Next, on American Movie Classics, Ginger Rogers stars as a sidewalk Cinderella in the charming romantic comedy Fifth Avenue Girl. It's next on American Movie Classics.
If you were a visitor to the Hollywood area in 1933, you may have stumbled upon the village that was built for the setting of Chance at Heaven, the movie we just saw. You know, after scouting several locations, one valley was finally chosen as the perfect New England location for this town. And the crew spent weeks building the town, and that, of course, included that gas station. And after 5 days of filming at the location, they took all the pieces of the town back to the studio, and they finished the picture there on the sound stages. But the skeleton of the town was left standing, where it became one of many movie cities that became tourist attractions later on. People used to all go and wonder what that skeleton was about. It was quite a shock for movie fans to see Marion Nixon in such an unsympathetic role as the one that we just saw. She was usually cast as, you know, the nice girl who gets the guy in the end. She could have carved a much bigger niche in herself in Hollywood for herself in Hollywood history. But a year after making Chance at Heaven, she married William Sider, who had directed the movie, incidentally, in case you missed that. Well, 2 years later, she decided that one show business professional in the family was enough, and she retired to rear her son and daughter, and that was that for her career. We'll be right back.
They're shocking, deadly, and dangerous. They're the stars of Hollywood Vice, a sizzling September lineup of crime capers on American Movie Classics.
Tell you the truth, I'm scared to death. I want to call Washington and start getting some help in.
Gangsters, cops, and G-men keep you on the edge of your seat as Hollywood Vice starts off with a bang. Richard Widmark steals the show in his hard-hitting film debut, Kiss of Death. Another Hollywood tough guy finds himself trapped in a web of intrigue. Robert Mitchum, Jane Greer, and Kirk Douglas star in Out of the Past. Next, she's cold, calculating, and filled with feminine mystique. But beware of the dangerously bitter Lady Scarface. Peter Falk stars in the story of a very risky business, Murder, Inc. And Hollywood Vice colors another classic, Henry Hathaway's landmark espionage thriller, The House on 92nd Street. Also in September, you've got a double date with two Hollywood heartthrobs. First, Robert Mitchum stars in two different kinds of roles.
We meet in all kinds of places.
Sparks fly when he teams up with Jane Russell in His Kind of Woman. Then when Mitchum meets up with Loretta Young and William Holden, they all get a lesson in love. Rachel and the Stranger. The whole month explodes with excitement when Richard Widmark rides your way.
Starting now, we turn into scavengers.
First, he's out to round up adventure in The Last Wagon. Then rough seas are ahead when Widmark stars with Lionel Barrymore and Dean Stockwell in Down to the Sea in Ships. And the suspense builds as a small-town doctor tries to stop panic in the streets. So whether you're searching for action and adventure, romance or intrigue, there's only one place to look in September. American Movie Classics. It would be a crime to miss it.
We're back, and before we continue, I'd like to talk just a little bit about some of the strange restrictions that movie studios demanded of their stars back in the old days. Standard contracts stipulated that an actor's services could be used whenever needed and wherever. The actor, whether he wanted to be in the movie or not, or whether the actor was suitable for the role, it really didn't make any difference. The usual contract was heavily in favor, as a rule, of the employer, with the actor being bound to the studio for 7 years. A refusal to play a role back in those days, or being lent out to a studio, which was a very common practice, resulted in suspension without pay. Now, in 1936, Betty Davis put Warner Brothers to the test. After not being cast in Anthony Adverse, she refused a role in a picture called God's Country and the Woman. And as a result, she was immediately suspended. She accepted an offer to do 2 films in Europe. Warner Brothers responded on that one with an injunction, and she countered that with a restraint of trade suit. There was a lot of legal activity going on. A British court, though, ruled in Warner's favor, and Betty Davis was forced to return to California. However, the studio overlooked the damages, and as a result of all of this, offered her better scripts, and it was the beginning of a road that was to really expand over the years. Jimmy Cagney also fought the studio in 1936, and that battle paved the way for a rethinking of the artist's rights and contract demands. I'll be right back, but first, something special from our film archive. American Movie Classics presents Newsreel Theater, featuring rare newsreel footage of historic people and events.
You're watching American Movie Classics.
We're back, and I hope you enjoyed that piece from our film archives, and now we get on to our next feature. There's an old saying in the film industry that the only ism in Hollywood, or that they believe in really, is plagiarism. Most producers operated on that principle, and I think they still do. You know the old saying, if it works, you steal it? The plot and the director of the film that we're about to see, it's called Fifth Avenue Girl, were both lifted from an earlier screwball classic that was called My Man Godfrey. You probably know that. You might well know this one as well. That 1936 film, anyway, starred William Powell as a man from Skid Row and Carol Lombard as a wealthy young woman who brings him into the household, and the whole story develops out of that. When RKO decided to use this story, though, as a vehicle for Ginger Rogers, it was really relatively simple to change the characters around so that the girl is the penniless one and the man is the wealthy one. It all goes to prove that what worked once was really worth repeating. Fifth Avenue Girl was loved by the critics and the audiences alike. Now, in the feature that we're about to see today, Walter Connolly plays the millionaire who allows Ginger Rogers to change his family for the better. As Connolly's children, RKO cast 3 of its young hopefuls at the time. There was Tim Holt, Catherine Adams, and Madeleine. Now, they were really anxious in that time, as they would be today, to create audience identification with these 3. So what they did is they named the characters with the real first names. So Tim and Catherine and Mandy are played by Tim and Catherine and Mandy. Today's feature was known first as My Fifth Avenue Girl, and then for some reason or other they changed it to She Said I Do, but they didn't like that, and the final title finally came into play, which is the one we're about to see. Here is Ginger Rogers in Fifth Avenue Girl.